Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wa mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Allahumma zidna 'ilman innaka anta 'alimun hakim. Allahumma ij'al hadhihi al-muhadara hujjatan lana la hujjatan 'alayna. Ya Rabbil Alameen, amma ba'd. This is our second class dealing with Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting, from a book from Imam Abu Najah Muhammad al-Hajjawi rahimahullah ta'ala, and his book Zad al-Mustaqni', Zad al-Mustaqni', which is predicated on the jurisprudence of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala. This is a classical book that deals with a lot of classical texts and a lot of classical issues. So we stopped last week. We got through how to identify when Ramadan is coming in. How can we identify when Ramadan is coming in? So the first issue, inshallah ta'ala, that we'll start with today is a statement of the Shaykh rahimahullah. We'll start by saying, Qala Musannif rahimahullah ta'ala, وَإِن رُؤِي نَهَارًا فَهُوَ لِلَّيْلَةِ الْمُقْبِلَةِ. Last week, we spoke about the crescent moon. When we see the crescent moon, we fast. As the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he said in an authentic hadith, Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. And Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, fast when you see it and break your fast when you see it. Fast when you see it is referring to the crescent moon or the hilal of Ramadan. The hilal of Ramadan. What month comes before Ramadan? Does anyone know? Sha'ban. Ahsant. What month comes after Ramadan? Shawwal. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Sumu li ru'yatihi, yani fast when you see it. What is he talking about? The crescent moon of what month? Ramadan. Last week we spoke about what night would the companions go out to look and see if they see the crescent moon. What night?
The 29th or the 30th.
La. Which is it? The 29th or the 30th? Which night is it?
39th.
29th? La. Khata. It's a mistake, man. Huh? You didn't review?
That was a hit.
Oh, you wasn't here, so you just guessed. Tayyib. La bad, huh? The 30th. What we said was, a month in Islam is either 29 or 30 days. Okay? Either 29 or 30 days. We also mentioned that the night comes before the day. So what does that mean? That means that the day changes at Maghrib. In other words, the date changes at Maghrib. So from Maghrib to what? To Fajr is the night. After Fajr starts the day. What does that mean? Let's say, for example, what is today's date? No one knows. Not even me. Today is Tuesday. The 17th, huh? Like, so the 17th, if we were using this according to Islam, right now would be the 18th. Because Salatul Maghrib came in, and it is now the 18th night. The 18th day will start after Fajr. However, the night precedes the day. So, if it's Sha'ban, the month of Sha'ban, and we're on the 30th day of Sha'ban, or is it the 29th day? The 29th day of Sha'ban, huh? The 29th day of Sha'ban, that night would be what? So, assuming today is the 29th day of Sha'ban, at Maghrib, it would be what? The 30th night of what? Of Sha'ban. The 30th night of Sha'ban, we're going to be looking for what? The crescent moon. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. Fast when you see it, the crescent moon of Ramadan. Because here's the issue. On the 30th night of Sha'ban, if we see the crescent moon, then that 30th night of Sha'ban actually becomes what? The first night of Ramadan. Therefore, we will start praying Taraweeh. Salatul Taraweeh will be prayed that night. Why? Because that night would indicate or signify that this is the beginning of the month of Ramadan. Is that clear? Right. So the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَإِن رُؤِي نَهَارًا فَهُوَ لِلْمُقْبِلَةِ. So let's say, for example, we go out on the 30th night, we do not see the crescent moon. So we wake up in the morning, muftireen. We wake up not fasting, and this will be the 30th day of Sha'ban. So, as we go on throughout the day, what if we look up in the sky and we say, oh man, we see the crescent moon now. It's 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Or 10 o'clock in the morning, you see a moon, it's a crescent moon. What does that mean? Does that mean, A, we missed it last night and actually we're supposed to be fasting today? Or does it mean, B, this crescent moon is for the next day? The crescent moon is for the next day. As the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَإِن نُهِي نَهَارًا فَهُوَ لِلْمُقْبِلَةِ فَهُوَ لِلَّيْلَةِ الْمُقْبِلَةِ. Yani, it's for the next day, as was reported by the Shaykh Rahimahullah mentioned that this is for the next day. That if we see it, then it would be for the next day, without getting into a lot of detail concerning it. And then he also mentioned, وَإِذَا رَآهُ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ لَزِمَ النَّاسَ كُلُّهُمْ الصَّوْمِ. The next issue is, and this is the issue that we find people differing in a great deal, specifically here in the U.S., the issue of when do you spot the moon? We have people in different masajid, different cities, so on and so forth. And the difference is, well, what moon, are we going to follow this people? Are we going to follow that people? What are we supposed to do to the end of it? And this issue has some differing of opinion from the scholars of the past. And what I mean by the past, from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So inshallah ta'ala, to this evening, we're going to get into a lot of detail with that in hopes that it will give some clarity or shed some light on this issue, to give people some understanding with regards to that. The Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَإِذَا رَآهُ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ لَزِمَ النَّاسَ كُلُّهُمْ الصَّوْمِ. So according to the school of thought of Imam Ahmed, he says, وَإِذَا رَآهُ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ. If the people of a particular country or town or place, if they see it, if they see the crescent moon, لَزِمَ النَّاسَ كُلُّهُمْ الصَّوْمِ, then it is incumbent upon everyone to fast. The question now is this everyone for every single Muslim? Or is it for every Muslim in that area? Or how does that work? And so they say, the hadith, this is due to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, fast when you see it, and break your fast when you see it. This is a command for plural. This is a command for everyone. Sumu. He didn't say sum, one person. He said sumu. This is a jama', which means all of you. So then, according to the school of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, and there are differences of opinion in that, they hold the position that it is incumbent for every Muslim to fast when they see it. This is a position. So we're going to look at this in some detail, inshallah ta'ala, from the aspect of the earlier generations of the ulama and how they understood this issue, and the purpose of which is because we find many people differing over this issue, Perhaps if you don't fast when we fast, and maybe you have innovation with you, and maybe they have this, and so on and so forth. A lot of times these problems go back to ignorance on both sides. People, sometimes we fall into issues where we speak without knowledge. And when we speak without knowledge, we harm ourselves and we harm others. In this issue here, it says, إِذَا رَأَى الْهِلَالَ. So then, we went back to some of the classical books about this issue. It says, وَإِذَا رَأَى الْهِلَالَ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ لَزِمَ النَّاسِ كُلُّهُمَ الصَّوْمِ. That it is incumbent upon everyone to fast when they see the crescent moon. This is a position of Al-Layth. Al-Layth was from the earlier generations of the ulama, and some of the companions of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullahu ta'ala. وَبَعْضُهُمْ, some of them, they would say, وَإِنْ كَانَ بَيْنَ الْبَلَدَيْنِ مُسَافَةً قَرِيبَةٌ وَمَسَافَةٌ قَرِيبَةٌ لَا تَخْتَلِفُ الْمَطَالِعُ لِأَجْلِهَا كَبَغْدَادَ وَالْبَصْرَةِ لَزِمَ أَهْلَهُمَا الصَّوْمُ بِرُؤْيَةِ الْهِلَالِ فِي أَحَدِهِمَا. So the first issue, some of the earlier generations of the scholars, they say, وَإِنْ كَانَ بَيْنَ الْبَلَدَيْنِ. If we have between two countries, or two towns, or two places, مَسَافَةٌ قَرِيبَةٌ, they're two distinct towns that are very close together. So much so that when the sun rises, the times doesn't change, or the times don't change. For example, if we're in Philadelphia, for example, and someone else is in New York or New Jersey, the sun comes up at the what? At the same time. For example, certain parts, if the sun comes up at the same time, people are fasting generally around the same time. This is considered the matala ash-shams, how the sun rises, if the sun rises in certain times. So here, they use the example, Baghdad wal Basra, like the city of Baghdad in Iraq and Basra in Iraq. Both of these towns are relatively close. This is what they mentioned. Both of these towns are relatively close, and therefore the sun rises at the same time. Thus, the time for the salats would be the same, and the times for iftar, breaking the fast, would be the same. In this case, if one person from one of those two places sees the crescent moon, then it becomes imperative or incumbent for everyone in those places to fast. Is that clear? If there's confusion, we'll explain it. But I don't want to go on until that's clear. Is that clear, everyone? Naam, fadda.
You said this is the opinion of Imam Ahmed and Shafi? Or I heard you say...
So listen, what I said was the position that everyone fasts, no matter who they are. If someone sees it, no matter where you're at in the world, all the Muslims fast together. This is the position of Imam Ahmed. Okay. All right? And he mentioned also this position of Layth and some of the companions of Imam al-Shafi'i. And then I mentioned some of them, meaning the scholars of the past, hold this position here. That if they're in the same locale, generally speaking, the same location, however, in different towns, but the distance between those two towns aren't far, or is not that great of a distance. In this case, if one person from one of those two towns or locations spots the crescent moon, then it becomes imperative or incumbent that everyone fasts during that time. Is that clear? Like, everyone. In those two towns.
Why is that?
Because the sun rises at the same place. So the moon will be seen around the same time. This is called the matala. We'll get into... First of all, is that clear?
You said when you see the moon, everybody has to fast. So why are you kind of confused about why only those two towns?
Because the sun rises in those towns the same time. Whereas in a different location, there's more to it than that. I just want you to understand this part right now.
Yeah, I got everything else.
All right. So then the next part, he says, وَإِنْ كَانَ بَيْنَهُمَا بُعْدٌ. This is the issue here. if it's between two countries or two places, a large distance. There's a large distance between these two places. كالحجاز والعراق والشام. So now they're given three different scenarios. The first one is Al-Hijaz. Al-Hijaz will consist of Mecca and Medina. Mecca and Medina is far from Iraq. They're far. The distance is far. The sun rises at two different times, during it 2 different times. Perhaps the sun might rise over here at 4:30 and over there at 5 o'clock, for example. The sun rises at different times. The matali' mukhtalif. It is somewhat different. And likewise, Sham, Syria, is somewhat different in how the sun rises. So, they say, فَلِكُلِّ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ رُؤْيَتُهُمْ. So for everyone in those different places, since they are far apart, they have their own different spotting of the moon. Is that clear? For those different places that are far apart, they have their own separate spotting of the moon. وروي عن إكرمة أنه قال لكل أهل بلد رؤيتهم وهو مذهب القاسم والسالم وإسحاق. So Ikrimah, he said that for every country, they have their own spotting of the moon. For every country or location that is far apart, they have their own spotting for the moon. And this is the madhab of Al-Qasim wa Salim wa Ishaq. Ishaq ibn Rahuya, who was from the companions of Imam Ahmed. وَلِمَا رَوَى كُرَيْبٌ قَالَ قَدِمْتُ الشَّامَ. And so they're going to mention a story. One of them, Quraybun, he said, قَدِمْتُ الشَّامَ. He said, I went to Sham. Sham now is considered the area of Syria. And he said, وَاسْتَهَلَّ عَلَيَّ هِلَالُ رَمَضَانَ. And while I was there, we saw the hilal of Ramadan. وَأَنَا بِالشَّامِ. While I was there in that location of Syria. فَرَأَيْنَا الْهِلَالَ لَيْلَةَ الْجُمْعَةِ. And he said, we saw the crescent moon the night of Jum'ah. We saw the night of Jum'ah. Is the night of Jum'ah after Salatul Jum'ah or before? Before. Laylatul Jum'ah. And he said, we saw it the night of Jum'ah. ثُمَّ قَدِمْتُ الْمَدِينَةَ فِي آخِرِ الشَّهْرِ. And then we went to Al-Medina towards the end of the month. The end of the month of Ramadan, we arrived in Al-Medina. فَسَأَلَنِي Ibn Abbas. So Ibn Abbas, he asked me about this. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ الْهِلَالِ. And then I told him that, we saw the hilal. فَقَالَ مَتَى رَأَيْتُمُ الْهِلَالِ. So Ibn Abbas said, when did you all see the hilal? Mind you, this is they're explaining about spotting the moon. So Ibn Abbas said, when did you see the hilal? فَقُلْتُ رَأَيْنَاهُ لَيْلَةَ الْجُمْعَةِ. He said, we saw it on the night of Jum'ah. فَقَالَ أَنْتَ رَأَيْتَهُ لَيْلَةَ الْجُمْعَةِ. So Ibn Abbas said, you mean y'all saw this, or you all saw this on the night of Jum'ah? فَقُلْتُ نَعَمْ. He said, yes. وَرَآهُ النَّاسُ وَصَامُوا وَصَامَ مُعَاوِيَةً. And all of the people saw it, and so did Muawiyah. Muawiyah, he also saw it as well. فَقَالَ. So Ibn Abbas said, لَكِنْ رَأَيْنَاهُ لَيْلَةَ السَّبْتِ. So Ibn Abbas said, we saw it the night of Saturday, meaning that Friday night. We saw it the next day. We saw it the next evening. فَلَا نَزَالُ نُصُومُ حَتَّى نُكْمِلَ 30 أَوْ نَرَاهُ. And so he said, we're going to continue to fast until we reach 30 days or someone sees it. So then Quraybun, he said, فَقُلْتُ أَلَا تَكْتَفِي بِرُؤْيَةَ مُعَاوِيَةَ وَصِيَامِهِ. He said, will it not suffice you that which Muawiyah saw in the fasting that the people in Sham saw? Is that not sufficient? So Ibn Abbas said, فَقَالَ لَا. He said, no. هَكَذَا أَمْرَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, no. And like this is what the Prophet ﷺ commanded us with. And this hadith, you can find it in Sahih Muslim. You can find this hadith in Sahih Muslim. So from that narration, it shows that people that were in different towns, they went with their local sightings. with regards to the moon. They went with their local sightings. Walana, Ibn Qudama, he mentions, Walana qawl Allah ta'ala, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. They say, to support the other position of Imam Ahmed, they say whoever, they use the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 185, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whoever sees the month of Ramadan from among you, then fast it. وَقَوْلُ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ لِلْأَعْرَابِ. What the Prophet ﷺ said to an Arab, a desert Arab during that time, لما قال له الله أمرك أن تصوم هذا الشهر من السنة قال نعم أجمع المسلمون على وجوب الصوم شهر رمضان وقد ثبت أن هذا اليوم من شهر رمضان بشهادة الثقات فوجب صومه على جميع المسلمين. And so they hold the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Muslims to fast. And it has been established that Ramadan was seen at a particular place, the moon was spotted in a particular place with the witness or shahadat al-thiqat, people that are trustworthy, for wajaba sawmu. In this case, then it is obligatory for the people to fast. So having said that, lastly, I'm going to read a position on this issue from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he's from the scholars of the past. He's also known to be from the muhaqqiqun. The muhaqqiqun are from the ulama who ينقل إلينا بعض إجماعات من السلف. They will bring to us different narrations from the salaf, or the scholars of the past, and say that this is an ijma' on this issue here is this issue is that. So with Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, when he mentions something on an issue, it holds weight to a lot of the ulama. It doesn't mean that his statement is written in gold, that everyone must take his position. La. However, is highly respected among the circles of academics in Islam, specifically the ulama of Islam. His statements on issues are respected. So Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, the strongest position with him, the strongest position with Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, is that every country or every place, they spot the moon themselves. For every country or every locale, they spot the moon themselves. إِذَا اخْتَلَفَتْ الْمَطَالِعُ. If the sun rises in different locations, then every place is on their own ruling. Every place is on their own ruling. وهذا اختيار شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى, and he uses evidence from the Quran, Sunnah, and Al-Qiyas. From the Quran, he uses the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala, where Allah says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whoever from among you see the blessed month of Ramadan, then they fast it. And then he also uses a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ فَصُومُوهُ وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ فَأَفْطِرُوا. If you see the crescent moon, then you fast. And if you see the crescent moon again, you break your fast for the month of Shawwal. And he also uses Al-Qiyas in this case. And he mentions that for every person, when they fast or what have you, when you break your fast every day in a particular city or location, it's around the same time. When you start your fast out in a particular city or location, it's the same time. Then why is it when it's time for the spot the moon, it's different times? So he uses that to show that it's better to fast in your local spot moon sighting. As it relates to us here in the U.S., specifically here in Philadelphia, if we look at that situation, it makes sense going with the local sighting. However, there's other issues there. Number one, who are the people that are looking for the spotting of the moon? Do they even know where to go to look for the moon? Do they know what they're looking for? Do they know when they're supposed to look? So on and so forth. So the first year I was back here for Ramadan, this issue came up, and I wanted to know, how do the brothers here actually look for the moon sighting? So some of the communities, they said, well, we go with the local sighting. I said, okay, that's fine. Me personally, I was more comfortable with going with the international sighting. But as for those who went with the local sighting, I wanted to know the process. What is the process? So what I found out was, certain brothers would look for the crescent moon here in the local area. If they didn't find it, then they would wait until they would check with Muslims in Texas. If they didn't find it, then they would check with Muslims in California. This right here is a khata. This is a mistake. And this here is not considered a local sighting. A local sighting means, why is that? Because in Texas, the sun rises totally differently than it does here on the East Coast. So if you're going to go to Texas and look for their sighting, what if they spot the moon and Ramadan already came in and you're already behind a day? If you're going to look for Texas, why not look in the Middle East? Obviously, they started before. It's the same concept. If you're not focusing on your local time zone area and spotting the moon then, and you're going to wait to look what's going on in Texas or in California, it's just like the international sighting. Does that make sense? Do you see how that can be misconstrued? How people could look, oh, well, we're going with our local. So some people here, local means America. That's not true. Local means whatever time the sun rises in your locale. And if you're not qualified to do that, then it's safer to go with the Muslims around the world. And this is a position of Imam Ahmed, that all the Muslims should fast together. Having said that, if you find Muslims who say, no, we're going to stick with a local sighting, then the local sighting is you in your time zone. You need to find out. But don't understand from that the time zone for Texas is local for the time zone here, because it's not. The time zone in California with regards to the sun rising and spotting the moon is totally different than here in Philadelphia or on the East Coast. Is that clear? Any questions about that before we move on to the rest of what we're going to cover? MashaAllah, no questions. Is it clear? Now, fadl. Say again? Sometimes people go with Saudi. Can you go with the time in Saudi? It's a different country. Yes. Yeah, you could. So we have the international sighting and we have a local sighting. If you're comfortable, I'm more comfortable with the international sighting, me personally. I'm more comfortable with that. But if you have a masjid and you guys are knowledgeable of how to spot the moon and so on and so forth and know, by all means go for it. I mean, it's not haram. Rather, it's recommended by many scholars to do that. If that's what if we want to do that. But the whole point of mentioning this is that if we find Muslims going with a local sighting and you decide to go with the international sighting, that's not a means to say, they're not on it. This is the position of Shaykh al-Islam. Ibn Taymiyyah, go with the local sighting. That's his position. Right? And many of the ulama, like Shaykh Uthaymeen and others, they hold the position to go with local sightings. Right? However, for me and maybe some others, they may not be comfortable going with local sightings. They rather rely on, the position of Imam Ahmed, for example, and fast with all the Muslims around the world. And like this. Now,
how, for example, a city going to choose...
I'm sorry?
A city.
A CD?
Yeah, a city.
Oh, a city. Okay.
Like Philadelphia. How they want to choose to go with the local side or the international side? Is all the masjid, or there is where the decision come from?
Yeah, in other words, who makes that decision?
Yeah.
I guess the authorities in the masjid makes that decision. Whatever masjid you belong to or you go to, whoever's in authority in that masjid, they're going to make that decision on what they decide to do. Will they decide to go with a local sighting, or will they decide to go with an international sighting. Just know that both positions are from the deen. These are not issues to say, these people are not followers of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and to the end of it. Rather, they both have positions. At the end of the day, it goes back to those people that are in authority in the masjid, what they feel comfortable with their followers doing and leading, because the people that are in the masajid, leadership in the masjid, they're responsible for their flock, the people that follow them. So whatever way they feel comfortable with doing, then that's probably what they're going to do. Right. Any other questions about that?
What's the between the local sighting and international sighting, according to the ulama? What's the majority on the ulama side?
The majority?
Yes.
Allah. It seems, Allah knows best. It would seem like the majority is that everyone fasts when if one person spots the moon, then everyone fasts. That seems to be the apparent majority. But understand something. The majority doesn't always mean that this is the more correct position. You do know the difference between majority and the strongest position. Do you know the difference between the two? Is anyone here familiar with the difference between, if I tell you the majority position is this and the strongest position is that? Do you guys know the difference between the two?
Majority position may not be the correct position.
Right.
The strongest position is the strongest position between a scholar who has researched.
So a majority position is a majority of the ulama hold this position. However, it doesn't necessitate that this is the correct position, if you will. It doesn't mean that because 7 out of 10 scholars hold this position, then this here is the best position and the most accurate position. However, you will find many of the ulama today and in the past, specifically some of the mashayikh I studied with, they are very afraid to go against the majority of the ulama in the past. In fact, one of the mashayikh mentioned to us, he said, this is the position of Imam Ahmed, Sufyan al-Thawri, Yahya bin Ma'in, man ana nukhalifahum. He said, this is the position of Imam Ahmed, Yahya bin Ma'in, Sufyan al-Thawri. He said, who am I to go against them? These people lived over 1,000 years ago and they put work in. They studied. They established things for Islam. Who am I today to take a position that is contrary to the majority of these type of people? Okay? So the majority position, it doesn't necessitate that it's the correct position. This is what Allah wants position. It doesn't necessitate that. However, it is to be respected. You must respect the majority position of the ulama of the past. You must respect it. Shaykh al-Islam in this issue, he went against that position. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, if anyone is familiar with any of his works, sometimes he goes against the majority. He's a scholar, rahimahullah. And he's of that caliber to make that distinction and to do that. With regards to the strongest position, because there's a difference between the strongest and the majority. The strongest position is the strongest position to that person speaking. Is that clear? I'll give you an example. If you were a scholar, for example, and you have all of the conditions that meet scholarship, then you could say, Ar-Rajih, or the strongest position with me is this. The strongest position with you is this. Many of the ulama today, when you hear that the strongest position is this, they're talking about with them. With them. It doesn't mean with all the Muslims in the world, this is the strongest position. That strongest position always goes back to the one who is speaking. The majority position goes back to the majority of the scholars of the past. Please make a clear distinction between the two. If anyone tells you this is the strong brother, sister, this is the strongest position, then you can say to them according to who? The strongest position according to who? Because every position like this has a person who said it. This is the strongest position to who? Okay? So then we have a difference between the majority position, which is 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10. This is the majority. Or the strongest position. If we have 7 out of 10, saying one, I'll give you a very clear example. I mentioned this on Saturday, and I'll mention it again. When it comes to divorce, right? The majority of the ulama say that from the Salaf, all the way up until today, if a woman gets a khul'ah, her menses or her iddah is 3 menstrual cycles. This is the majority position of the Salaf. When I first came back here to the U.S. and I was counseling a couple, and this issue came up about a khul'ah, I said, okay, sister, your iddah period is thalathata ashhur. She looked at me like I was crazy. What is this? I said, what do you mean? This is the majority position of the Salaf, of the scholars of the past, all the way up until today. This is their position. She says, well, I don't know about that position, brother. We follow, it's only 1 month. I'm like, 1 month? I'm familiar with the 1 month, but this is, all of the ulama we study, no one takes that position. It's something that is the minority position. However, even though it's a minority position, it is the position of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. And it's the position that is prevalent in this particular city. So therefore, this is a primary example. Majority of the scholars of the past hold the position that is 3 menstrual cycles. And when I say from the past, from the Sahaba on up. And then we have a minority of those ulama don't hold that position, and that the opposite position is the strongest position to them. Is that clear? They both have their dalil, they both have their evidences to support it. But I just wanted to mention that. Is that clear? Thank you. How much time we got? I think I'm going to stop with that, inshallah. Huh? What do y'all think?
No, you should.
Huh?
No, you should.
No? Because that was a lot. Yeah, we'll stop with that because the next issue is going to require some more explanation that's a little more than this. And I really wanted to just talk about that issue today, about the different spottings of the moon, to make that separate. And then after that, we'll pick back up on Saturday, inshallah, and we'll cover the rest. Any questions so far about Ramadan and so on and so forth, what we're going to be covering to the end of it? Nothing. Alhamdulillah. Good. Alhamdulillah. طيب. So we'll start with that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.